Can you imagine a world where children grow to their full potential? Today's guest has a vision for exactly that. I'm Cameron. I spent years building my career and creating a life I loved. And when my Prince Charming finally showed up, he had 4 kids in tow. Fast forward through lots of mistakes made and lessons learned, stepfamily life was much more complicated than I realized. If you're looking for help with blended family life, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Stepmom Diaries, where we keep it real as we dish about all the things. This is your weekly dose of blended family inspiration and encouragement. You're not the wicked stepmother, so let me help you find your fairy tale ending. Come on, let's do this. Welcome. So today I'm bringing you a guest who is different than anyone we have talked to before. Today we're talking about homeschooling, which is something, if I'm being honest, I had not thought a lot about in the past because none of my stepkids were homeschooled. And honestly, it wasn't something that I ever thought I'd be capable of doing. I mean, I had a big career and my husband was in the military, and it just wasn't something that was ever on my radar. And I know people who have been homeschooled when they were growing up. I know people who have done homeschooling, but I kind of always had it in a little, box of kind of where it would fit in someone's life. And I never really thought that it was a possibility. Today, our guest really opened my eyes to the different ways that can be done, even in blended families. And she is a stepmom herself, which is so fun. Houlie Duque is my guest today. She's the founder and CEO of Homeschool to Go, which is a pioneering bilingual, personalized K-12 education program serving families across the Americas. Now, I had no idea what personalized education was either until today. And I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. But Homeschool to Go is the leading organization for personalized education across the Americas. And Houlie's mission since starting Homeschool to Go has been to make high-quality education accessible to parents that want to write a better story for their children. As we enter this time where we're looking at, artificial intelligence and economic decentralization, it really is crucial that the next generation is trained and developed to build a better world. And that is her mission. So we're going to get into this conversation. I think you're really going to enjoy it. I know I did. Let's dive in. Houlie, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is definitely a very special type of podcast. So I'm very excited to be a part of these type of conversation. It's different from what you see. So you're doing something awesome.
Oh, thank you. Well, you are too. And we're going to get to that. And I can't wait. But I always start out asking my guests what their stepmom origin story is. And so you are both a stepmom and a bio mom. So tell me all the things.
Yes, definitely. So my child is 5 years old, and we've kind of very much from the very beginning been in that co-parenting mode with his father. And so I feel like it was sort of a blessing in disguise because this was the setup right from the get-go. Because we were, not together, we decided to go separate ways before the child was born. So it set us up so that when he was born, we would try to create the best possible relationship as co-parents, so that usually when a child has to go through their parents divorcing and all of this, there's a lot of chaos and a lot of disagreement. So I feel that as far as being in a harmonious co-parenting relationship, we got a lot of experience early on. And that has been a great experience in, even where I'm now in a relationship, and it's a blended family setup where he obviously also is a co-parent because he has 2 children. So we have 3 boys, and it's 5, 8, and 10.
Oh, that's a lot of boys under 12.
It's a lot of boys. I'm the only girl in the group. And so, yeah, it's just having that goal of having harmonious relationships all throughout. I think, that knowledge that I had from having to do those difficult conversations early on really prepared me for being able to navigate these types of set of dynamics, to put it that way.
Well, and interesting too for your son, because he has always gone back and forth and didn't have to get used to kind of the new arrangement.
Well,
It's an
Yeah. And
interesting dynamic, you know?
right. It's different, right?
Yeah,
For most parents, like they usually try for a little bit if a child is in the equation. And for us was like, we knew that it wasn't going to work. So we didn't, we decided not to, just to do what felt right and make it
that's
work
great.
from the get go. I find you would think that a child being born in a setup like this wouldn't have to go through the same difficulties. But as I have conversations with other friends that are parents in co-parenting relationships, and they're trying to figure out how to navigate certain situations and perhaps the difficulty or the disagreements in parenting that come with that dynamic, I hear a lot of like when the children goes back and forth, kind of goes through a little bit of like they're just more emotionally needy, or
Oh,
you can tell
yes.
they're emotionally unstable during that
Yeah.
first switch up.
Yes.
And it was like that with my child as well from the moment he was a little boy, like a
Mhm.
little toddler. So that also prevails. And then also like the he never knew his parents being together,
Right.
but you can tell he still desires that,
Of
so
course.
it's
Yeah.
interesting because he never knew that as a reality before, and he still desires it. So it's something that's very biological and very ingrained in a child to see
Uh-huh.
the two people that he loves most together, so he doesn't have to be switching all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's easy to, like, look at somebody else's dynamic and say, "Well, gosh, that must have been so much easier than how we are doing it."
Mhm.
But really, in a blended family, it doesn't matter what the dynamic is.
Yeah.
There are always challenges.
Yeah. And I always say to my friends that are in similar situations that if there is anything good about the fact that you have to raise your child like in a split setup, is that you're raising a highly adaptable child. And that's
Yeah.
an important skill for the world right now.
Yeah.
So
It's a
yeah.
good way to look at it. So tell us, you are the first guest that I've had on that has anything to do with homeschooling. And so I'm really interested to have this conversation because I have several friends who were homeschooled. I know people that are homeschooling their kids. Let's get into it. Tell us about Homeschool to Go and like why you started it, what you're doing, all the things.
Yes, definitely. So I used to be a teacher. I was a teacher for about 10 years, and I taught at highly prestigious institutions like Montessori and Cambridge, top of the line where parents pay $25,000 a year or so to send their kids to go get an education. And so there's obviously a lot of things that are better about these type of systems from the traditional public school system. But I found in there that I was still, although I had really good tools and really good methodologies, and the way that we teach the children is more like transferable to real life and more project based is what both of these Cambridge and Montessori would fall under, project based education. I thought, wow, yeah, the skills are great. We're teaching kids two languages like English and Spanish, like great
Great.
advantage,
Yeah.
right? And big part of the reason why parents would pay the extra to
Yeah.
have this opportunity for their children. But I was still constantly frustrated because to me, as a very committed teacher that I was, it was evident that each one of those children were not getting what it was that they needed to be able to develop to their full potential. I thought there's more that I could do for each one of them, but I could never do it in the setup because it's one teacher versus 20 students or more, or maybe slightly less, right? In most schools. So I always knew in my experience as a teacher that I wanted to homeschool my own children when the time came. And so when I had my own child, I started developing it. I also worked with homeschool families where I would go and teach for or
Wow.
tutor for other children, like for other parents. And I saw the difference between a child where you can work with one-on-one and a child that you can't do that. And it was monumental. So I always knew this would be the decision for myself. And then when I became a mom, I started researching what I could do, what programs were out there that I could use to support me in this process. And I didn't find anything that really lined up with my standards or my expectations given like the experience that I've had as a teacher. And
Mhm.
so that's where I was like, okay, I'm going to have to create this myself. And I started doing that, and I started finding more and more families that wanted the same thing. I started hearing more at the interviews. Stuff like, oh, it's like I prayed you into into existence, or if I can pray you into my life because you are literally checking all the boxes that I was looking for. So I realized this is actually a problem that is more universal than I thought it was. And so that's how my company started growing. And yeah, we started doing what we're doing now. So what we do is we basically, from thousands of conversations that I've had with parents, understood why it is that parents choose to homeschool and what are the main barriers that make them double guess or have a second thought whether they can do that or not. And so some of it is family rhythm. Some of it is family structure, like in blended families. Some of it is my child has neurodivergence abilities. So how do I adapt to that? And so I kind of build our organization so we were able to help those parents overcome all of those barriers together. So it's a very well-rounded system to help parents achieve those goals without feeling time restraint or like they have to bend over backwards to make it work.
That's so great. And so you're teaching parents like how to do the homeschooling. You're not providing the homeschooling for them.
So we do a little bit of both.
Okay.
So that's what I mean by like overcoming the barriers. So we have, first of all, we find out what is the time that the parent has available for spending with that child, whether it is like, I want them to be able to do this amount of work independently, and I have this many hours a week that I can sit down with them and help them.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
so that's the first thing. The second is, what are the legal authorities requesting in that specific state or province that they are located in? Because you have to check those off to be able to make your homeschool legal. Then the third is knowing what are the needs of the child. So the dominant learning style, the multiple intelligence. And so with all of that, we create a curriculum that is going to be legal, that is going to be certified, that they're going to have a high school diploma by the end of it. And that
for that individual child or for that
individual. Yeah, right. Because when you do the dominant learning styles and the multiple intelligences, you can build a program that is going to help that specific child thrive and develop their own genius. Like for me, a child that's a genius is not necessarily that he is predominant in linguistics or predominant in logical mathematical. They're predominant in something and they're aware of it, and they can continue to develop that to stand out in whatever setting they are as they grow to be professionals, to learn how to create value for the world. So that's what we do. That's where we focus the education. Like you can get all these credits with project-based education working on what your talents are if you have the expertise that we have, and that's so it's a huge job for a parent. So that we make sure we do that. We make sure it adapts to their family rhythm so it's sustainable because they have to carry it out. But then you're saying we're not teaching for the parents. So we don't do that, but we do assign each family a teacher that can answer questions. Let's say I have suspicions that my child might be dyslexic. So then, okay, we can test for that and find out. And if so, we can send you resources to help them overcome those like that literacy learning that they're going to need that's specialized. Or whatever the hurdles might be, there's a teacher checking in with them every week. And then another thing that we do to build community and to encourage the children is we do bi-weekly group calls where all the kids get together with their particular, like with their teacher that they're assigned to, and they show each other the projects that they're doing. So it adds a lot of encouragement for the kids because they love coming on the calls and showing what they're doing and talk to the other kids. And
I would imagine, to me, and none of my stepkids were homeschooled. I was not homeschooled. To me, the idea of homeschool sounds so overwhelming for a parent. And so it really seems like your business model is taking that overwhelm off the table so that parents can make a decision about what's going to be best for the kids.
Right. Like all the parts will seem overwhelming to a parent because they're like out of their scope, right?
Totally. Because I'm not a teacher. I wouldn't have any idea how,
how do I build lesson plans and how do I know what my child needs? We do all that. And so what we do leave to the parents is the part that is natural, which is, can you sit down with your child and work on these steps and figure out the answers to these questions? And it's like a lot of the times in every situation, it's never the responsibility never falls on the parent. Like, as a parent who's homeschooling your child, you don't need to have the answers to all the questions. Right. What you need to have is a disposition to find out the answer to those questions together, which is something that we do every day. Like we have a question and we have resources that are accessible that will help us get there. So yeah, so that's the part that's, sitting down with your child and doing these projects and activities is
I
something that
love that.
does feel more natural for a parent.
So let's talk about the blended family of it all. Like,
Mhm.
so, if you like your family and like, I'm sure that you work with a lot of blended families too, like, how do they
Yeah.
navigate that between households? And especially where you have a situation where maybe there's a difference in opinion about the child's education plan, or maybe there's a difference in ability in terms of being able to sit down and do that work with the kids. Like, how do
Yeah.
you work with parents to navigate all that?
Yeah, I will talk about a couple of different setups just to maybe illustrate more examples. But there is, if both parents are not on board with the homeschooling, is going to be hard to
Yeah.
make it happen, right? But what I do think is that even when parents are together in a normal nuclear family unit, there's a lot of the times that the mom comes to me. It's like, I really think, but I need to convince my husband. Like, can you help me? So this whole like having both parents be on board is important in every family setup. Now, let's say that the case is where both parents that are not together agree on homeschooling, and let's say like for parents that have a week on week off type of setup, what I found is a lot of the times one of the parents will be the ones that are doing like the academic homeschool part of it, and then the other parent is doing more like music, sports, and this type of stuff. And
Mhm.
what's beautiful about homeschool is that you don't need to adapt the child to the curriculum. You can adapt the curriculum to the child. So in that section where the parents come to us and tell us what's their family rhythm, okay, so you're going to see your child every other week. We're going to give projects for that. And then here are some ideas for what the other parent can do while they're with them. So we can do that. Sometimes you get the parents, like I have a family, for example, where the mom will do English, Spanish, like literacy and arts. And then the father will do like science and math and numbers, right? So we're able to split those two subjects kind of separately. So the father feels comfortable in the time that
Mhm.
they have them, and vice versa. Yeah. So there's that as well. But a lot of the times we make it as easy as possible for whatever the setup is. And for example, in my particular case where I'm homeschooling my child and he's in a blended family, when he is with me, we do most of the curriculum. And
Mhm.
then when he goes with his dad, he's not doing much homeschool wise. Like he's not really reading or doing any math or anything like that. But he has like instruments around him. So he's doing some sort of music and doing more physical activity with his father. So his father doesn't really structure anything, doesn't really like that. But so I take care of it in the days that I am with him to make it consistent and to make sure that he's growing and
Yeah.
develop as, per the developmental years. But I did want to mention something about the blended families. There is a lot of collaboration that needs to happen for raising a child. And I find a lot of the conflict that can arise from that initial like change of dynamic from being a unit to
Mhm.
being separate. I think that working first on harmonizing that communication, aligning the goals, focusing on what it is that both parties want and how we can make that work. Of course, there's things like a child has different households, so they have to adapt to the different values, the different everything. And
Yeah.
that's going to bother you at some point. But I think like one of the main lessons that we learn when we become parents is you don't have as much control as you wish you would have. Like
So true.
relinquishing control is such a big part of unlocking the parenting level in life. It's like you don't have that control. So instead of trying to control everything, knowing that first harmonizing of that communication and focusing on the goals that both parties have is so important
Mhm.
for building everything else on top of that. So yeah, like if there's any parents, because I've had that situation where I've had parents in our community that are together and then they split while they're still
Right.
with us. And then they're trying to rearrange and it's very difficult at the beginning. I always say the same thing. Just focus on the goals that you have aligned, which usually surround and revolve around the child and the upbringing of the child
Yeah.
and wanting to give that child the best future possible. So I think that's step number one. And then once you're there, it becomes a lot easier to make any other decisions.
Yeah. And do y'all have a 50-50 split, or is it a different?
I was calculating it today. It's like I have him 60% of the
Okay.
time. Yeah. But we have a very different setup compared to most families because we don't do week on, week off. My partner does week on, week off.
Mhm. That's what we did.
We do. So I am with my child most nights. And then during the day, I'm with him Tuesday, Thursdays, and then Saturday and half of Sunday. So he'll go with his dad during the day on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And so those are the days. Today's a Wednesday where I get those meetings and those work things
Yeah.
done that I couldn't do if my child was running around. Right.
Right. And so you do school with him on those days that he's at your house.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
so interesting, and that's something that, like, I don't know that had ever occurred to me as being a possibility, and I'm guessing that there are many blended families that would not have even known that that was open to them.
Absolutely, because like in the society that we live in, we're used to like being told this is what families do. Like there's like the 3-3-4, or I don't know what that setup, but it's like those more current switches, and then there's a week on, week off, and then you kind of you're given this framework and you just follow what you're told, kind of. And I think the whole idea of homeschooling is realizing that your life doesn't have to be a product of what you're fed. Like you actually have a lot more freedom than you realize, and you can accommodate that according to what your goals are. In our case, how we did it is we want to build it around him having a lot of time with both parents,
Mhm.
rather than like work comes first. And then we see where we inject child moments or family moments in between. We say family comes first, and then we work around with our jobs around it. I have a friend who's a single mom, and the father is not involved at all completely. And she homeschools. And I remember her saying, like, it's a mindset. Like a lot of people say, if you're a single mom, you can't do this. And that's not true. It's like, if you want to make it work, you can make it work, because you're not having to follow the framework of 5 days a week, 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
You can get so much done in less time, as long as you have to figure out what are your priorities and then schedule your life around that. So of course, if you have a job that's 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, it's going to be very hard for you to do homeschooling.
Yeah, yeah.
Because in that setup, your priority clearly is the professional career. And so I think that moment where you're pregnant and you're about to have your child and maybe you're on maternity leave, that's a really good time to decide how you want the rest of your life as a parent to play out. And if you are well past that stage, you still have the option. Of course, you're going to have to rearrange things, but it's always a possibility if you're willing to adapt to change.
Yeah, I mean, it means that, if you have been working kind of a 9 to 5 thing, then you are gonna have to consider some pretty major changes to your career.
Right.
But I love the point of view that it is doable if
It is
you
doable.
you
Yeah.
know
Like options, like people often think I have two options. No, you have many more. It's just like you
Yeah.
have to be willing to face the consequences or the implications of those changes.
Yeah, and there are trade-offs, right? Like, if you decide to step away from 9 to 5, you may take a pay cut, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Or
there are
not. Maybe,
trade-offs.
right. Maybe at the beginning, like if you're
Yeah,
doing your own business, but I think for everything in life, when you are trying to move to something that pays more later on, it
yeah.
always takes a higher investment up front,
That's so true.
right?
So
Like,
true.
yeah, like if you want to stop working 9 to 5 and build a business, that's going to give you more freedom. Perhaps it's going to give you more income that you had at this time, but at the beginning it's going to
Yeah,
take investments. It's
absolutely.
going to take more time. I think it's like everything in life. If you are aware that those first years
Yeah,
are so important for your child's development, and you're willing to perhaps sacrifice a little bit of your career for the other benefits that come with that, then
yeah.
that's an option that's available.
Yeah, it is. I love sort of the underlying point that, like, keeping all these options on the table is ultimately a good thing, and
Yeah.
allowing you to think about your life maybe more creatively than many of us were raised to think about it. I mean, I was raised that, like, you go to high school, you go to college, you go to graduate
Mhm.
school, you get a job, and it doesn't always have to look like that. So I love kind of
Yeah,
encouraging people to think outside the box.
especially now if you think about it, because the way that the public school systems are created. And when it was invented in the Industrial Revolution was specifically with the goal of fueling or filling up the need that there was for factory workers. So a lot of following instructions, a lot of memorization, a lot of compliance training, to put it that way. But with the way that the world is changing, I mean, AI is not going anywhere. A lot of those jobs that require reiteration and repetition can be easily replaced by AI. So a lot of those jobs are going to disappear. So I think skills like critical thinking, adaptability, creativity, curiosity are so important to nourish in this time. And
I think that's right. This is such a fascinating conversation. I feel like there's like so much more we could talk about.
Yeah.
But tell everybody where they can find you, and I'll make sure that I put all your links in our show notes as well.
Yes, definitely. So I did build a masterclass. It's free, and it's basically to answer all those initial questions. Like if you're considering homeschool, you have calling in your heart, but then you have like that stress of like the overwhelming, like, can I do this?
Yeah.
I have this type of setup. Like I made this kind of 30-minute class that answers all those questions and gives the next steps to be able to set up your trajectory in that way. And so if you go to Homeschool to Go, like TOGO, just like the actual word, org, you'll see it'll bring you to our website, and you'll see in the first page there's a big button that says try our free masterclass. And so that will kind of give you all of the foundation to take the next steps and to answer the questions that you might have at that point. So that's a good way to find me, because after you watch that masterclass, there's an option for doing a one-on-one with me to answer more individualized questions. Or you can also find me on Instagram. You can search homeschool.togo to go, or you can search Houlie, HOULIE DUQUE, and then my personal Instagram will come up, and I share a lot of valuable information on there.
Love it. We'll link to all of that in the show notes. And Houlie, thank you so much for being here. This is really fascinating. We will have to do this again.
Thank you for the message you're sharing with the world and for making me a part of it.
If this episode spoke to you or touched your heart, would you do me a favor? Take 10 seconds to go and follow the show, leave us a 5-star review, and share this episode with another stepmom who might need to hear it. Your support is going to help grow our blended family community, and you never know whose life you might change.